Hey, what is going on, your Reckless Rotana? So the other day on the stream, I was going over my Hartford regionals run. That's going to be what I'm going to be sharing with you all here today. Talk about the deck list changes I've made from Portland to Hartford, and my run overall, how my games went, and how I ended up in a top 16 finish at the end of the tournament. Before we get into it though, just want to let you all know that Paldea Evolved singles and sealed products are available over at fullgripgames.com. So don't hesitate, head over there, fullgripgames.com. Link will be in the description, of course. And of course, anything you do or buy over at fullgripgames.com directly supports me here on the YouTube channel, this Twitch stream, and all that stuff. So if you want to support me and everything I do, and you need Paldea Evolved cards, be sure to go over to fullgripgames.com for singles or sealed products. I got it all available over there, so check it out. Like I said, fullgripgames.com. I'll say it one more time, link in the description. And with that said, let's go ahead and let's get into the video. All right, let's start by talking about the list. So I went once again, Lost Box, Kyogre. The things that I changed from the list that we played at Portland. I mean, me and my group played like slightly different lists at Portland. But if we just took Grant's list from top 8, we cut the boss for... What did we cut the boss for? We cut the boss for something. Oh, the 4th recycler. Because I think we basically all agreed that like Kyogre plus Echoing Horn is just like all you need to theoretically close out games. So just being a little bit more consistent should be all you need to actually win games. So we went with the second Pokestop over Beach Court, and that was actually really good. It allowed you to be aggressive in the early game, the mid game, the late game, which allowed you to be aggressive at theoretically like any point throughout the game. And we wanted a little bit heavier focus on Kyogre because we expected Lugia to see an increase in play, which it did. So we wanted a little bit heavier of an emphasis on Kyogre. So like the Pokestop, good at decking yourself out, finding the pieces to pull off the Kyogre combo. And then Energy Recycler is the card that we all felt was like the key piece to getting Kyogre to work at the end of the game. Was like, it feels like at the end of the game we just need more Recycler, right? Like to get the combo working, like the piece that we're missing most often or having to potentially burn early game or use throughout the game was Recycler. I actually beat multiple people because they thought I was out of Recycler, and then I played the 4th Recycler and won, which is kind of funny. So yeah, the card that we needed to win the game, or the card that we felt like would win us the most games was Recycler added to increase the odds of the Kyogre combo happening against like specifically like Lugia decks was one of the focuses, because we all predicted Lugia, or my group predicted Lugia to see a decent amount of increase in play, and it did. So that worked out pretty well. I didn't lose to any Lugias. I don't think Caleb lost to a Lugia. I know Isaiah like lost to one Lugia. I don't know about the rest of them though. So yeah, the boss is kind of mid anyways to begin with if you don't play Sky Seal Stone. So this is the list we went up going with, and we ended up going with Kyogre again in general because we just felt it was like the best overall deck. Our second choice was Lugia going into the tournament. Our second choice was Lugia. We were very close to playing Lugia, but Lugia is just miserable to play. It is just not an enjoyable deck or experience to play. So I'm kind of happy we didn't go with Lugia. And I think everyone else, like the rest of the group, was pretty, besides Caleb. Caleb really wanted to play Lug and Chops, but instead we ended up on the Lost Zone Kyogre once again. Yeah, it's just a miserable experience, man. It was just a miserable experience to play Lugia. So I'm glad we didn't end up playing Lugia overall, to be honest. I'm definitely glad about that, because it would not have been a fun time. It's just not a fun deck to play. It's a good deck though. It's a very good deck. Like definitely by far our second choice for sure. It was our second choice for sure. Was just like Lugia. I don't think we really. I mean, Isaiah wanted to play Mew, but that's cringe. So I'm glad we didn't do that. We didn't really get really close to even thinking about playing that. It was just Isaiah who really wanted to play that. So ended up on the Lost Box. When I say Isaiah, I'm talking about. I'm sure a lot of you know Isaiah Bradner, but I'm talking about Isaiah Williams, who is probably a little bit less known in the community these days, but top 4 nationals 2014, like someone just said in chat, and then also won OCIC. I forget which one Isaiah won, to be honest, but also an IC champion. So I built the deck you mentioned on stream. Sky Seal with Zapdos, Tropius. How's it been so far? Also Guardian Gudra, yeah. We can go over my matchups next. That's what we're gonna go over next. And then I'll talk about what I would change in the list, if anything. I don't think I would change anything in the deck, but I'll like circle back and we'll talk about it. So my matches are here. We'll just start from round 1 on. They did not put... I don't remember what Jonathan was playing, to be honest, so... There's no deck here. I have no clue. I do not remember at all what they were playing, to be honest. Played against a Lugia. This one was actually really close. The Lugia matchup was actually really, really close. They made a misplay at the end of game 1. I had like a really slow start and couldn't get really anything cooking very aggressively. I couldn't get anything cooking really aggressively early on. And then at the end of the game, they like KO'd my Sableye over my Kyogre. And I think I was out of Claras, or my last Clara was prized. Of course, they didn't know that my last Clara was prized, if it was, if I remember correctly. And then I was able to Kyogre for game 1 the next turn. And then game 2 was pretty straightforward. I won game 2 pretty handedly. Round 3 was against a Lost Box Mirror. And I definitely misplayed in game 2. I was probably going to lose game 2 no matter what at a certain point. I had a pretty rough start. They had a pretty fine start. They opened Zapdos V, though, initially. And then just in the middle of the game, I just played it poorly, where I could have... I just tried to get too gimmicky with it. They board locked themselves, but I didn't get a fast enough Sableye off to actually like play for the board lock. And I should have just been aggressive about KOing their Manaphy over and over again, because they had the Zapdos in play. I would have been able to Kyogre at the end of the game for 3 prize cards, theoretically. So I should have just like been really aggressive with using my Sableye to KO Manaphy over and over, get to the Kyogre turn, hopefully get through all their Manaphy's and get to Kyogre, and then Kyogre go Kyogre, KO their Zapdos plus KO another Pokemon and just win the game that way. Because it's pretty easy to like, if you want to use Kyogre in the mirror match, which you almost never do because it's just not necessary, it doesn't do enough, and it's kind of just like you don't need to extend that hard to win the game. But if you do ever want to use Kyogre in the mirror, it's like really easy and straightforward. And then we just didn't have enough time for game 3, so I don't remember this game against Nelson at all, but apparently it was a mirror match and I won. And then against the Goodra, this one I won game 2. But in game 1, I definitely misplayed. They overextended their bench initially in game 1 and put down 5. They put down Comfey, Greninja, Cram after I had KO to Comfey. And theoretically, at that point, I can just win with Sableye and Greninja with Echoing Horn and just KO 5 little things around the Goodra. But on like turn 2, I benched a Dragonite and I put a 4 Seal Stone on it, because in my head, I was like, if I was playing Goodra at this event, I would play a Judge. And that's what I was telling people to do. That's what I was telling people to do going into this event. It's like, if you're going to play Goodra, you should definitely play a Judge, because basically every Lost Zone deck in the format right now, or most of them, can like checkmate Goodra pretty hard. And I literally had the checkmate in that game. And then I just... I benched Dragonite turn 2 because I was like, well, if I was them, I would play Judge. But I shouldn't have played around them playing Judge, because there was like no way they had Judge. Like, I shouldn't have played around them having Judge in their deck, but I did. And then at the end of the game, they won 1 turn sooner than I did. But if I didn't put the Dragonite down, I just win with Sableye board locking them. But yeah, so I definitely misplayed that one. And then we got to game 3, and we didn't have that much time left, so I played really aggressively, and they had the earlier choice. They had like turn 3, turn 4 choice belt on Goodra to KO my Dragonite. So that was just kind of unfortunate that they found the choice belt before I could get like a second hit off with Dragonite. So that was just kind of unfortunate. Against Liam with the Guardy, game 1, Liam actually had me. Liam had me in game 1, but then misplayed. They had a weird board state where they had a Guardy with a ton of damage on it, and they did collapse the way the Guardy EX, so I could no longer get prize cards off it. But it was their only Guardy EX available for the rest of the game, and they didn't put enough energy in play to set up multiple attackers, so they knocked out my Dragonite with a Shiny Arcana Guardy, and then I just went Sableye KO that, and then they couldn't attack next turn. But they could have put enough energy in play to knock it out. And then game 2, if I remember correctly, was I got ahead and stayed ahead pretty handedly in game 2. Yeah, I could have gone to a game 3. It probably would have tied if we had gone to a game 3, though, to be honest, because the Guardy matchup's pretty long. Against Justin, this one I don't really remember either, to be honest. Oh yeah, Justin drew pretty poorly. Like, they just were not able to set up. They got like one of the games, game 1, I think they opened Zacian pass, and then I KO'd the Zacian, I think. And then game 2, I got Greninja KO on double Ralts. They evolved to a Curlia, and then I went KO, and they got a Curlia set up on the next turn. And then they went, okay, bench or evolve to the Curlia plus bench a Ralts. Because if they don't bench the Ralts, then I can just go Sableye KO Curlia and then still lock them out of Gardevoir. But they couldn't get Manaphy and Ralts, so instead they went for Ralts Curlia instead of Manaphy Curlia. And then I just went Greninja again, knockout double. So they didn't really have a good choice there. I was either going to get to 10 and use Sableye or just use Greninja again. So I just used Greninja again and clean them up. I misplayed pretty bad. Hamza played really good, actually, but I did misplay pretty bad. I just mismanaged resources in game 1. I was like ahead on the prize trade, and then I just like started to let it slip as the game progressed. So game 1, I played pretty poorly. And then game 2, I think I think I had it locked up, but I attacked with the wrong Pokemon. So basically at the end of game 2, they go attack with Shiny Arcana Gardevoir to go down to, I believe, oh no, I'm taking an attack to knock out a Guardy EX, I think, while they have a Shiny Arcana Gardevoir on the bench with like 3 energy. And they have no Ralts in play at that point. And instead of attacking with Dragonite for the turn, and I only have 2 attackers left, a Dragonite and a Sableye. Instead of attacking with Dragonite for the turn, I attack with Sableye, but then that allows them to just go bench Ralts, send up Shiny Arcana for the knockout, plus Rock Sand me. But if I just attack with Dragonite that turn, they already used Pal Pad, and their boss and Serena were in the discard pile. So if I just attack with Dragonite that turn, knock out the active Gardevoir EX, then they go push Shiny Arcana Guardy, can punch my Dragonite, but then next turn I just go retreat to Sableye, use Sableye in the turn after, or switch out the Dragonite, attack with Sableye, KO something, and then attack with Dragonite to close out the game on the end of the other turn. Or yeah, and then I would just win that game. So I choked game, I misplayed, I choked game 1 and game 2. Game 1 I definitely let slip away. I don't remember the exact points, but I remember throughout the game I was like, I definitely messed this up and messed that up and messed this up, and like, so game 1 I think I should have just won, and then game 2 I definitely threw. Of course game 2 might not have happened the way it did if I had won game 1 though, so I mean I can't like predict for sure that game 2 would have gone the exact same way if I had won game 1, but I definitely threw both games the way they did happen. Played up against another Lugia. This one they drew really bad in one of the games. One of the games they forgot to use Serena, and then I was able to respond with Sableye, KO, T-Tar. So they forgot to use their Serena one of the games. I think I was going to win that game anyways, even if they didn't forget. Oh, it was actually funny. In game 1, that's funny. I remember this now. In game 1, I went second. They opened Lugia V-Guard Energy. And I just didn't register the V-Guard Energy initially. And I know the play, if you have Lone Lugia V plus V-Guard Energy, Raikou can't KO it, but you could KO it with Dragonite. I wasn't able to get to a turn 1 Dragonite attack. I was able to get to a turn 1 Raikou attack. And initially I thought I was just going to win the game when I pulled it off. And then I realized there was a V-Guard there, and I was like, oh shoot, should I even do this? And I was like, well, yeah, I should still attack with my Raikou here. Because they would attach pass, so who knows if they even get off double Archeops next turn. And then just hitting there means like next turn I can go Greninja, knockout, plus snipe something else, like the T-Tar, potentially to set that up for Dragonite, or I can go like Sableye, KO, plus set up more damage. So like even though I didn't win the game turn 1 with a turn 1 Raikou attack, it was still like correct to attack with the Raikou there and just put a bunch of damage in play. So I did that. They got out the Lugia double chops turn 2, but I still was pretty easily able to clean up the game from there. And then game 2, they messed up the Serena play, which allowed me to get super far ahead because I was able to transition from a Cram hit into a Sableye knockout, which is always like really like what you want to do on the T-Tar, but it's like impossible to do because they play Serena. And then yeah, and I just like took over the game from there. I think I closed it out with Kyogre in game 2, but that was the winning into day 2. And then in day 2, played against Drew round 1. I was pretty clean 2-0. I just like used Kyogre at the end of both games to close it out. There was a really weird development in game 2 where like instead of taking knockouts, Drew was just trying to mill me at a certain point. So like I had just attacked with a Raikou, and instead of knocking out my Raikou with T-Tar, Drew instead goes for the mill attack, which I think is correct at the end of it all, because if Drew doesn't mill me there, then I just literally win with Kyogre. So goes into like milling, but that gives me like a lot of time to work with. But I think it was the correct play, but like the odds of Drew winning at that point were just pretty low because I was so far ahead. So round 1 I win. Then I play against Sawyer with the Arcdura Umbreon deck, and in game 1 I definitely misplayed at some point. I don't know if it would have actually changed or mattered overall. And I lose game 1, and then I win game 2 pretty easily. In game 2, it felt like, if I remember correctly, I won game 2 pretty easily, just like hitting with Dragonite, having the option Kyogre, hit with the other squad. They played Hawlucha. Actually, Sawyer made a misplay I think both games by discarding their Hawlucha, not because like they maybe want to keep it around to utilize it later, but because I play Echoing Horn. So I was able to just Echoing Horn it back into play both games and then use that as my 6th prize card. So I was like, okay, KO Arc, KO Dura, KO Hawlucha, or like some combination of those being the 6. So they definitely messed that up. So I never even had to go the Kyogre route, although I could have if I wanted to. I could have gone the Kyogre route. I could have gone the Kyogre route, but I didn't need to because they just discarded Hawlucha both games. I just Echoing Horde back into play. So it's definitely a mistake on their part to actually ever discard it because it gives me such a big line of play. Well, that happened in game 2. I don't know if that actually happened in game 1. Maybe I was thinking about it in game 1. And then going into game 3, there's like we had very little time left, so there's like no way Sawyer can ever probably win the game. But I had a pretty good shot of winning. I had a pretty good shot of winning the game at that point because I can still win, but like the chance that they draw 6 prize cards if my hand is slow, I just don't have to put a 2-prizer in play, and they probably never draw 6 prize cards in enough time. But I could win theoretically, but I prized going into game 3, I prized Kyogre, Dragonite, and Heavy Ball. So I was like, well, okay, sure, whatever. I guess we're just gonna tie then. And then we tied like 4 or 5 turns later. Yeah, because like if I get like, you know, a Dragonite KO, then I just like rush through my deck and find the Kyogre combo, I could win. And I drew 2 prize cards before the game ended, but none of the 2 prize cards were Dragonite, Kyogre, or Heavy Ball. So I literally just never had an option for a heavy hitter. It was just like, okay, sure, whatever, I guess. So it probably would end in a tie no matter what, but yeah, I mean, I never had a chance because I prized all the heavy hitters. Then I played against Mew in the next round, which is pretty straightforward. It just came down to draw 2 prize cards, Kyogre for 4, both games. My opponent actually showed up late, so they were when you show up late, you have to win 2 games. If the game goes to time, like even if my opponent is up 1-0 and game 2 goes to time, I still win the match. My opponent has to win 2 games. So they were like, you know, playing pretty fast. It was actually one of those situations where I had to tell my opponent to shuffle more, right? Because they were like, and it's like reasonable that they want to play faster. You know, they're definitely not thinking as much because they misplayed multiple times. In one of the situations, they said they wanted to attack with Max Miracle, and they said Max Miracle, but I had a Greninja in my active, so they just didn't get a KO that turn. So I had nothing wrong with like how fast they were playing. That was fine. I did ask them to shuffle more though, because they would just like they matched it like twice and handed it to me. I was like, no, that's not. You have to do a little bit more than that. I'm sorry. Like I know you want to play fast, but you can't just give me a unshuffled deck to cut. But they were reasonable about it as well, you know. So it's like not like a big deal. But yeah, them rushing did lead to them like saying Max Miracle. Like they meant to use Max Miracle, said Max Miracle, and then it didn't KO my Greninja. So I made one of the games really easy. I forget if it was game 1 or game 2. And then I had triple mirror match from here. The only game that stands out for these to me is the one against Marvin, where I had a really weird board state against Marvin. In game 2 and 3, I board locked myself, knowing I was board locking myself, knowing that they could get into Sableye eventually and then keep me board locked. And I probably shouldn't have board locked myself. The alternative was just not attacking for the turn. But I think that was probably correct for me just to not attack for the turn. Instead, I went bench my Cram, retreat, attack, but I should have just passed. My board state was like Greninja, Manaphy, triple Comfey, and I should just pass. And then on the next turn, either I attack with Greninja, because their board state was like Raikou, Snorlax, Greninja, Comfey. They had like a really ugly board state. But because I board locked myself, I was like, I feel like they have to attack with Cram next turn or maybe always win. But then they just like retreated to Snorlax and then just like kind of passed. And then the next turn they Sableye, and I was like, yeah, I definitely messed this up. I shouldn't have board locked myself. I thought it would maybe work out for the board state that was for what the current board state was. I was like, I don't know. I feel like this actually ends up in my favor, even if I board lock myself here. But then the game actually played out, and I was like, I shouldn't have board locked myself here. And then game 3 was wild. I opened Dragonite. We both basically opened a dead start. But I opened Dragonite for Sealstone. That's literally it. My hand was Dragonite for Sealstone, then like double Recycler, Clara. Like it was literally trash. But I got a Colress, cooked a little bit on that first turn. They had Snorlax. They went Snorlax, Comfey, pass. Like Snorlax on the bench, Comfey in the active, use 1 Comfey, pass. And I was like, okay. And then I went Dragonite for Colress, and then back over to them. I don't even think they Colressed on their turn. And then on my second turn, my first attack was with Raikou. So I was like, all right, well, I don't have anything else. I have to, my only reasonable attack here is with Raikou because I went Escape Rope and they pushed up Greninja. And I was like, okay, well, that's fine. I'll knock this out with Raikou. And that's like not that bad. Like removing their Greninja from play for the trade-off of attacking with Raikou is like not terrible, but it does put a 2-prizer in play on my side, which is not great, obviously. But yeah, it was just a really weird game where like I had 2 2-prizers in play, but it didn't end up at a matter. They also didn't play Kyogre, I believe. I don't think any of the Lost Zone opponents that I played against, the Lost Box Zone opponents that I played against, played Kyogre, besides Caleb, of course. But yeah, then 2 more mirror matches against Caleb, beat Caleb, and then I tied against Samuel. We had pretty good games in both of our games, but yeah, it's just what mirror match. Like, it's really hard if both players win if game 1 and game 2 split. It's really hard to complete 3 games in mirror match. If like game 1 and game 2 get played, there's just too many things going on. It's like really tough to finish the games, unfortunately. So yeah, I ended up tying my winning in, and then I got 15th place. So back-to-back winning ins, back-to-back, or not quite back-to-back top 16s, because I got top 32 at Portland, but a back-to-back winning ins is like still pretty good, I guess. Like getting another winning in here, I can't really complain too much, but would have been nice to get into the top 8 again. I've not gotten that many top 8s this season, just a lot of top 16s. How did you feel this version dealt with mirror matches, like matchups against other Lost Zones? I mean, matchups against other Lost Zone decks are like fine. Like I think you're like probably actually favored against Gudra overall if you don't misplay. You're favored against Lost Tina. Sablezard you're fine against as well. That one's either like 50-50 or slightly favored for any. Like Greninja is just favored against Sablezard slightly, or it's 50-50. And then like if people have stuff like Halucha and Roxanne, it's annoying. I almost feel like Halucha Penny is more annoying. But like for them to like fit those cards into their deck, they have to be sacrificing something somewhere, right? So it's like maybe they're advantaged in the mirror, but if you're not playing Kyogre or something like that, then you're coming up short against like Lugia and stuff. So so I don't know. I'm not like I don't think it really matters too. Like the mirror match is such a crapshoot. It like really does not matter what your list looks like for the most part, to be honest. Like you can tech with Roxanne and Penny and Halucha and all that stuff, but the mirror match is still just like about a 50-50, to be honest. Like it does not matter. It doesn't seem like it matters too much. You appreciate 613 sub there, MPK, and the 33 months there, player 1. But yeah, that was my run. I don't think I would change anything in the list, to be honest. The list actually felt really good. The recycler, obviously, you don't need. I don't feel like you need 4 recycler, but it was pretty good, to be honest. And I think moving forward in the meta, it's still probably pretty good as well, because like I said, it's kind of there for like the Lugia matchup. Just being able to like pull off the Kyogre more consistently. Like the card, definitely the card to add to the deck to make the Kyogre play better is a 4th recycler. Past that, if you want to make the Kyogre play even more likely to be able to pull off at the end of the game, I think second Kyogre, I think there's definitely some merit to second Kyogre, because you can set up some really weird board states where you like bench a Kyogre and then your opponent bosses it, and then you don't even Clara next turn, you just bench another Kyogre. So yeah, I almost like the next card you could add past that would be another Kyogre, but I really don't think I would change anything about the list, to be honest. Obviously, like you could play like single prize Kyogre deck. Like I think that deck is pretty decent as well, but yeah, single prize Kyogre I think is still pretty decent as well. But as far as like the 2 prize Kyogre build goes, if you're gonna play the Raikou, the Dragonite alongside the Kyogre, then this list is like pretty good. And I think like the 2 prizers, like you definitely need Kyogre and Lost Box if you want to beat Lugia consistently. If you don't have the Kyogre, Lugia gets really tough. But this kind of build with the Dragonite and the Raikou and the Kyogre, I feel like maybe at that point your Lugia matchup does just become favored, but at the very least it's 50-50. Like you'd have to commit a lot to like get there, I feel like, but you don't have the cards aren't bad in other matchups either. So yeah, overall deck's pretty cool. Definitely still a big fan.